Yeah, I mean, they did well. We've got a really good one sitting in the locker room too, Jameer Nelson. So, we're going to have to continue to do that by committee. We're going to have to continue to, soar with what we do well individually and figure out how best to fit everything together. I do think this is going to become a team, probably, that is, you don't know exactly who's going to be going. You don't know exactly who's going to be the right fit, depending on the matchups and those type of things, and depending on how they're playing. So, it was great that Marcus played that many minutes in a row and made some big shots down the stretch. And I think he can learn from a couple of the turnovers that he had down the stretch.
All right, we're back for part two now. Let's get into this game. So they win this one 114-98. It was one of their easiest wins of the season, and a big reason for that was Kelly Olynyk, who was, it's funny how we've gone through, I guess, 3 different seasons on the Garden Report so far. Season 1 was Kelly Olynyk's great. Season 2 was Kelly Olynyk's terrible. And now we're back to Season 3, Kelly Olynyk is great once again. I mean, what the heck is going on with Kelly Olynyk?
Yeah, I mean, he's inconsistent. That's what young players are. This is 3 good games in a row, though. They haven't been against the best opponents, but 3 good games in a row nonetheless. He had 21 points, shot 8 for 13, pulled down 8 rebounds, had 3 assists. He was, the game was close the whole time until he gave them that huge spark off the bench in that late first to early second quarter. And then, he had 14 of those points in that stretch and then had another 7 in the second half. He was very good tonight.
The funny thing about him is what he's able to do well, whether it's interior, working off the baseline, shooting 3-pointers. It seems to vary a little bit as far as what's his calling card every single night. But tonight it was another one of those balanced efforts where he was running, so he was kind of rolling to the rim, but he was hitting some threes. He had some mid-range shots. He's developing that floater a little bit more comfortably now. It seems like that's finally kind of getting into his game, the little kind of like
weird
high
shot
post
for a big
game
guy.
kind of thing. Yeah. It's like a pseudo Anton Jameson kind of move almost.
Good comparison.
Yeah, well, we would hope he doesn't end up being Anton Jameson in the end, because everybody was kind of frustrated by Anton Jameson, I'd say, over most of his career.
Fair point. Let's hope he's not Anton Jameson.
Let's hope so. Okay, so with Olynyk, they have a guy that can do most things. I know Tommy once compared him to Dirk, I think, out there. So
that's steep.
Not,
why wouldn't Rondo have just stayed here if he already had Dirk here?
It's true. It's true. He wouldn't have to go to get Dirk. It was funny because Rondo was asked today in a press conference why did he choose to go to Dallas.
Yeah.
Apparently it was for Dirk.
Well, I mean, he said I didn't choose to go here because he was traded here.
Like Mark Cuban was like crying, laughing outside of the shot. Yeah.
Yeah. The reporter rephrased their question.
I think they might have been a little bit out of the loop on that one. Yeah. But either way, the Celtics, they seemed very cohesive, and one thing that was great was the exterior ball movement. They were really passing the ball around the perimeter. They were doing kind of zigzag pinball type passing. Not an easy one. And that's the kind of stuff that Stevens had really talked about as far as emulating the Spurs. That's something the Spurs have mastered, and you're seeing it come to action all of a sudden as soon as Rondo leaves. I mean, they've been doing it a lot this year, but this was the game where it seemed to really come together. It probably has to do with just the adrenaline of really stepping up today. But you saw that this team, when they had another scorer out there, because Rondo isn't much of a scoring threat, it's kind of a last resort type of thing. But with Smart out there and with Turner out there, every single guy is a scoring threat, and that allows them to move the ball, I think, a little bit quicker.
Yeah, for the first time, obviously they've played without Rondo, but for the first time they're playing without Rondo and know that they don't have to be prepared to have him back. So there's not that player that's going to, pound the ball around for 18 seconds and then try and find the open shot. They're free to move the ball around. Everybody on the team, arguably is a scorer. So this is going to open a lot more options for them. And, it's good to see them come right out first game without Rondo and play as such a cohesive unit.
And, the thing is, without Rondo, you were worried about whether or not they could do things like running the pick and roll, stuff like that. But that didn't seem to be that much of an issue. I know Zeller had 14 points and 7 for 9 shooting. Solinger, exact same thing. Solinger had 10 rebounds tonight, too, which is pretty impressive. But the kind of distributing the points to those bigs there, it worked. I mean, they were able to do it. And that was the thing that you were kind of worried about, is can those guys get their shots? And they were able to get their shots.
Zeller was a guy in particular because he fed so much off those Rondo pick and rolls that I worried, is Zeller going to be able to still do that? Tonight, obviously, with, Smart, I think, had a good feed to him. He ran some good pick and rolls with both Smart and Turner. So, it looks like that's not going to be an issue. It looks like Zeller can still produce.
And, Zeller, he's the kind of guy that he needs to kind of have the environment around him thriving for him to succeed. So he's the kind of guy that you have to think you need to get him the ball in the pick and roll. He needs to be getting offensive rebounds, stuff like that. Smart seems like an ideal partner for him. Smart will probably make things a little bit easier late in games when defenses tighten up because Smart can actually score. And I feel like Rondo to Zeller, as far as long term when they're really seriously competing in the fourth quarter, it's going to be really hard for them to run those pick and rolls because defenses usually tighten up in the interior a lot more. So we'll see how that works out. With Evan Turner, it was kind of a little bit hot and cold tonight, but Avery Bradley had 7 assists, and he looked pretty solid in his role tonight.
That jumped out at me. I don't know where those came from, but Rondo's gone. Avery Bradley has 7 assists.
Now, before we go to box and ball, one thing I want to kind of think about here is Phil Pressey's role. So Phil Pressey is kind of the one guy that's really a true passing guy that they have out there right now. Marcus Smart, even Danny Ainge acknowledged it before the game, is that he's kind of learning how to become a point guard. And Phil Pressey is a pretty legitimate point guard there, and I'm really curious to see what kind of stuff they're going to run with Pressey out there. Is he going to get more opportunity? Tonight he played 15 minutes, so it wasn't really that much different than what he's been doing for most of the season. But do you want to see more Pressey, maybe a little less of the other guys?
I mean, I'm a Pressey fan. I think not a born point guard was the term that Ainge used with Smart. Pressey is a born point guard. That's what he is. He's born to pass. It comes naturally to him, whereas Smart's going to have to learn and develop that skill. So, I do feel that Pressey is a good option to run this offense. That sounds a little crazy, but, when he got spot starts for Rondo last year, he did a lot with them and had some very good games. So, Jameer Nelson is going to get some minutes at point guard. Evan Turner is. Marcus Smart is. So, there's still a lot of competition there. But Pressey is a guy that I think needs to get a look, at least, at, some 25 to 30-minute games maybe and see what he can do with the offense because I think he's very good at it. And for his size, he's not at all a defensive liability. He gets after it.
And that's one thing that I love is that very early on he was a bit of a defensive liability, but I think he's learned how to make up for it. He's learned how to read rotations, fight through pick and rolls. He's so quick and he's in those guys' chests really tight. His hands are so active. I'm really excited to see what kind of defensive impact he's going to have on this team for the next couple of years. Assuming he sticks around, but I think he probably will.
Who knows at this rate, but yes, I think Pressey's here. All
right, so let's box and ball now. So for me, my boxing out stat of the night is the points in the paint. I love to see that they had a 68 to 48 advantage on points in the paint. And they only took one more shot. It was just that they were hitting the shots a lot more frequently. And I think it was really important that the Celtics could show that they could still get the ball to the hoop, that they weren't going to – they took 23 threes tonight, which is probably close to their average, which is – I can't believe that they can average over 23s a game, but they're pretty close to it. But they showed tonight that even without Rondo – against a team that, they do have Gorgie Jang, who's a solid kind of on-ball, shot-blocking kind of guy, but they're missing Pekovic. They don't really have their full team right now. They're pretty weak on the interior, but they showed that they can still get the ball to the interior, they can still pound the glass, and they can still be an effective driving team. That was really important for them to establish right out the gate.
For my box, I'm just going with the Celtics' overall field goal percentage. They shot 56.5%. They were kind of on fire for the whole game, 48 for 85. We've talked about a lot of games this year where we see, 100 or close to 100 field goal attempts. They got 114 points on 85 shots. That's very efficient.
Yes.
And one of the guys that helped out with that late, my baller, Marcus Smart. There's some other guys that had better games, but Smart came on late. He shot 3 for 6. He had 8 points. He was a huge part of the fourth quarter. And even when the game was kind of out of reach, he's locked down on defense, zoned in, and he hit a huge three-pointer that kind of blew the game open. So
he had 2
on the night, on the night that Rajon Rondo was finally gone, it was nice to see Smart come through on some levels.
And didn't those shots, I know that he didn't really have many points up to that point, but those 2 3-pointers kind of exemplify exactly what the Celtics wanted when they got rid of Rajon Rondo, was that they acknowledged
exactly
that
what Rondo
with Rondo on a mediocre team, a pass first point guard isn't what they need. They need a guy that can take those shots at the end of the games. That thing about Rondo has been oversimplified forever. It's way more complex than that. But if you really want to simplify it, a developing team with not a lot of go-to scores, if your best player is a pass first guy, then you're relying on guys that aren't really qualified to be taking the last shot. And Jeff Green has had to do it. He's had some pretty incredible last shots in his career. We'll never forget that fadeaway in the corner in Miami.
That's the one.
But generally executing him trying to get that shot, it's not really there for him. It really isn't. And
Totally
Marcus
agree.
Smart's the kind of guy that can get that shot. And that's why going with Marcus Smart is probably going to prove to be the best long-term solution for them. But they're still going to get they're going to need a few really great players around him if they're going to really pull off this transition.
Of course.
So that's a long-winded way of saying my baller of the night is Kelly Olynyk. So no, but Olynyk, 21 points. He played 25 minutes, 14 seconds. He shot well. He got some rebounds. It was just another clinic put on by Olynyk. I loved it. I'm loving seeing the guy that I criticized turn everything around and play better than he's ever played before. That's what we look for on the Garden Report, and that's why we're getting out of here. So for Julian, I'm Jared. The first Rondo-less episode of the Garden Report was a smashing success.
Smashing success.
I guess they're not going to be trading us to Dallas anytime soon.
No, we're staying right here.
All right, we're staying right here. We'll see you next time. Have a happy, happy holiday. I'll be lighting that menorah up. I hope you guys are lighting up that Christmas tree. And if you want to just send me gifts, you can just leave them for me at the garden front door. I'll accept any gift whatsoever. We're out of here. Peace.
Yeah, it's crazy, but unless you know, that's how the NBA is. I looked around, and me and JJ were joking this morning, looked around the locker room, and we were thinking about we named all the guys that I've played with and how they're all gone and in different places, and it's crazy how fast these years go by.
Actually, I haven't got a chance to talk to Rajon. Kind of want to let things kind of wind down for him. I know he got a lot going on, and to put in perspective with him right now. So, and I was a little bit surprised with the trade actually. I wouldn't say pressure. I mean, it's going to be hard to fill, his spot. Rondo's a great player and done a lot for this franchise, so it's going to be very hard. But it's just an opportunity for not only me, but some of these other guys to step up.